Hello, everyone, and welcome to the series of knowledge sharing session. My name is Montu Verma, and today we are again continuing our knowledge sharing journey with all of you procurement wale. And I hope you all are safe and sound with your family members, peers, and with your colleagues. So, guys, I am so thrilled today and grateful to all of you for joining us. And today we have Mr. Karthik Rama, who is a procurement doctor, and we will love to listen his perspective and experience on business stakeholder management, or we have a tagline for this session, which is fight between business stakeholder and procurement professional. Hello, Karthik Rama, and thanks for joining us today.
Hey Montu, thank you for welcoming me. It's a pleasure being here, and thank you everyone from Procurement Valley for joining this session. I'm looking forward to learning from you guys, from the active
Sure.
interaction, as well as share a little bit that I know over the years. Nothing
So,
else.
Karthik, before we really start the session, can you please say a little bit about your experience and as your introduction? Then we will love to listen your experience on stakeholder management.
Sure. So I'll not take much of your time. So I come with close to 16 years of experience. I've done multiple roles, right from being the procurement guy, managing the requisition to pay, to contracts, to the invoices that are not accepted, working with finance, working with different guys. And then I got promoted into a category leader role. I used to manage the contractual services, professional services, environmental services for a US company. And my role slowly moved into being a guy who was restructuring the policies and procedures, setting up the service center in India. So that gave me a lot of insights into varied things. Then I moved into tool implementation, all the procurement tools, maybe Ariba, Coupa, S4HANA, all these tools. So consulting on that side, business consulting. So I'm a mixed bag, majorly to say. And of late, I've joined an organization where I joined them as a consultant, helping them build their tool and look at help them understand, help them show how to be in the customer's shoes. And that's what my major job is. And it's been a pleasure being in this procurement for such a long time, all these years, working in different industries and regions as well.
Thank you so much, Karthik, for your introduction. And as far as my understanding, this is a challenge for all of our procurement professional to manage stakeholder in their company. So now let us start quickly. What is your perspective and what your experience actually say how to manage a stakeholder in any organization? So let us start quickly. Then we will have a question answer session before end of the session. Thank you. Over to you, Karthik.
Sounds good. So thanks, Montu. So what I'll do is I'll start sharing my screen. I put a few slides together so that we have a particular angle to the discussion. I want to drive you through a story, right? And then please feel free to add in your questions in the chat window all throughout the session. I want this to be interactive. That's when I get to learn from you. It's not just a one-way traffic. Okay, please do use the chat window. We also have a few other activities in between where we want you to be engaged on during the session. Okay, so let me just close this. I don't know why this history window came up. Give me a second. It's just the computer trying to tell me to take a look at the virus on the computer. As it is, as coronavirus is not enough, we try to also look at software-based viruses. So, like Bob suggested, right? It is the fight between procurement and business stakeholders, and my sessions are usually very casual and open, very raw. So that's how I'm going to keep this session as well. Okay, so just so that you understand what is the content that I'd like to cover, I'd like to cover the who are our stakeholders, the what, and what is it that creates the fights, or what are the fights that we have, why do we have the fights, and then we'll move to the how. So the how is where we'll spend a little more time. The other aspects we do understand, but I want you guys to be able to relieve your frustration. I know there's very little people that you can relieve your frustration about all these issues that procurement wale face, right? And then towards the end, like Monty said, we leave it for questions, and do put your questions in the chat window in case you. I don't want you to lose your train of thought, and that's why I'm saying use the chat window as well. We can also have an open dialogue towards the end. So let's talk about the who, right? And I just want to give a context before the who. I hope this isn't the who in your organization, and I've seen this to be the who in a lot of the organizations. Like the stakeholders, when do they come to you? When they're out of options, they don't have anything to do, and they're close to executing the project, or they want something to be done really quick. There's a fire, and that's when procurement is involved. Give me a thumbs up if you all are facing this right now. And what I'll do is I'll quickly move to the next slide. So I've just jotted down a few key stakeholders here, guys. So I have finance, I have technology, I have legal. Technology is our IT teams, legal, department, budget heads, budget owners, and senior management. So I think the first three are pretty understandable for a lot of us. I know there are a lot other stakeholders that we have as well. And what I'll do is like you see, Montu had executed the polling. What I'd like to understand from you is who is the most painful stakeholder amongst these guys. So please go in and start giving your feedback on the first question that you have. I'll give it we got 20 more seconds. Montu, if there's a way to extend the timeline, it'll be good. If people are not putting in the polls.
Sure.
Okay, I'm seeing a few votes for marketing. Then finance is leading it now. And there's someone who doesn't like senior management. Okay. It's shocking that we don't see much of a department or business budget owners more so. Wonderful. Another minute to go, guys. I see 7 of you have answered. I want the other guys to wake up and start answering that question. Who is the most painful stakeholder for you? Yeah, now finance and senior management is leading right now. Come on, we're close to 42% completion. Let's get the voting in. I know there's another poll that also got initiated. We could use those results as a part of the later on session. Okay. Finance is leading now.
Yes, Karthik. Finance is leading now.
Okay, a lot of people have issues with their invoices and their bank data not being updated and all that stuff. Okay.
Okay, let me publish the poll.
Yeah. Let's publish the polls. And I'll take a screenshot of it so that we can talk to it in a bit.
So it is finance.
Finance is the winner now on this one. And we have another, I'll just take a screenshot of this poll as well. We'll use it for later. Okay.
Sure, Karthik.
Wonderful. So thank you so much, guys. That's very useful because I wanted to, the reason I put this poll out is to understand which angle that I need to talk more so. Whether it's with the stakeholders that you're in is it the budget owners or the technical team or the engineering team that is a pain, or is it finance or it's technology or whatever, but it looks like we have pretty even between finance is number one for us and senior management is the second set of people that are creating a pain for procurement guys. That's good insight. Thank you so much for the contribution. Now, I don't want us to sit like that and understand the what do we do now, right? What are the different reasons why we have a fight? And I'd like to bring a clear picture as to what I see. It is a comic relief for you guys. If you see, a lot of our procurement people think like this. Our main goal is to please our stakeholders, except when their processes are very complex or when they are too many requirements or when they're hard to deal. So we have to deal with them regardless, right? It's like you have no other option, right? So that's a picture that I like to paint for you guys. And if you look at it, I just jotted down a few points as to what do we fight about, right? This is the what section. So I'll just call out a few things. I want you guys to use the chat window to add in the other things that you see that uh, basically are reasons to fight. So I'm calling out a few and I'll give you some background. Why did you not select the vendor of my preference? Montu and I were talking this afternoon. This was one of the key things that we've seen as a pain point, right? They always have their own babies or the incumbent suppliers that they love dealing with. They have a Ramu or a Shamu from the supplier side who they're very close with, and they want to deal with that guy all the time. I have finalized everything. Please go and release the PO or the contract ASAP. Everything is ASAP, right? So this also happens a lot. I've dealt with this, and I've given the brackets as everyone, right? Because usually that's the case. Procurement is last in the food chain. We get to know just before things are getting initiated. Finance, the biggest one, right, guys? All of you had selected finance. I don't consider that as a savings. So Karthik, don't try to fool me. So that's happened like a million times with me, and we can talk to how we could stop that from happening. I needed that one done last week itself. So we're always running on a timeline. So where is the time for procurement to do strategy or do something more, a market analysis on a particular new buy to try to deliver savings? So there's no little time out there. Here's one for technology. The procurement systems you want is not compatible with our architecture. You should have involved us earlier. So I hope you guys have been through such situations, right? And I'll just go to the chat. I think few people added, oh wow, all depends on the type of industry supplies. No one said IT. Okay, wonderful. So guys, please put your problem points while I'm highlighting these as well. So the next one is, why is the PO released on an expired contract? The requirements keep changing between your business stakeholders, and you need to redo the tender or RFQ or whatever that you're running. Basically, the cycle starts again. You don't understand the requirements. That's again a procurement thing where we come across as very savings oriented, and they want us to understand a little bit of the category. I don't want my spend to go through procurement because you guys take a lot of time, and that is usually marketing. And finance complains about, why did you not check the budget? And legal, again, they keep complaining about using the wrong contract template. If you have a template for your organization, and the golden question is just stated in the policy. And the bigger question than that is, do we have a policy in the first place? So I'd like to quickly check the chat window and see if you guys have added something else. Quality issues due to incorrect design. Later, we can't do a DFM or change the design in urgency. Thank you, Rohit. That makes a lot of sense. Okay. I got one problem statement. I'll move on to the next slide. I hope this has given you some kind of a context as a group. What are the basic reasons? What are the basic things that we fight about, right? And if you haven't had one of these reasons, they would surely come to you soon. Now let's get to the why. Okay, why does this happen? Why the fights happen? Okay, so if you look at this classic example, right, the business owner raised the requisition and he ordered for a laptop or a computer, and look what he got on his desk. It looks like he ordered for an Apple laptop, and instead they delivered an Apple. So here's a basic. This is similar to what Rohit had said. The requirement is not clear, or whatever may be the case. So it could be either or from business or from our side. And what I'll do is, we have another survey. So let's see if we could relaunch the survey. And this time I want you guys to answer the second question, guys. So just as a background, right? So this is a real life scenario. Imagine you as a category manager, and you've been summoned to a CIO's office, which is a chief information officer, on a short notice, right? As you waited in the conference room, you wondered what might be the reason to be called. And the CIO entered a room. She got right down to business. Now, I would want you to predict what the outcome might be Uh, you have two options here. One is it going to be a positive outcome, or is it something that went wrong? So let me just relaunch the survey, sorry, the poll, and I'd like you guys to answer the second question this time. Okay, in the poll, the one in the below. Guys, please start voting. I see a few votes, right? I hope you have some context now as to why you got called and what might be the reason. And this also will help us drive our rest of the discussion. I see it in a particular, from my experience, I see it in a particular way, and I hope both our experiences match. Let me drink some water while that's happening.
Yes, Karthik, it is very close. 50-50.
Yeah, that's surprising, man. We have only 6 votes now. So guys, the rest of the folks, please start voting. Whoever's just joined, we have a poll that's running on the screen. I want you to answer the second question. We want you to predict the outcome of a conversation, and the conversation is on the screen, right? It's you as a category manager called into a CIO's office, and you're anxiously waiting in the conference room. You want to predict what the result might be. Now something went wrong, it's going up. That's good. Something might have gone wrong, right? Usually that's the case. I have 8 votes that are done. Guys, please go in and chime in the votes really quickly. It's no fun without the voting and all this stuff, because I want us to engage. And let us know if you're finding any issues in voting. Okay, I'll give it another 30 seconds, guys, and then we'll end the poll and we'll move on to the next section. Yes, it is a repeat poll, guys. It's supposed to be separate polls, but you can ignore the first one. Just go with the second question, because the first we've already got inputs on.
Yes.
Awesome. I think we're done with 30 seconds. So let me end the poll here.
Something really went wrong.
And this is what I was expecting. This is what I was expecting. Thank you so much, guys, for helping me with those inputs. I'm sharing the results. You guys can see how it looks like. And let me go back to the slide. Thank you so much. So it seems like something went wrong. And that's how the real world is. And that's why I call it a real life scenario. And there's certain reasons why this happens. We'll get to the reasons as we go forward. So why do we fight? So these are the basic reasons that I look at as to why do we fight. First one is lack of trust, right? You don't trust them, they don't trust you. And they don't think you're capable of delivering. We think that they don't understand what we do. So there isn't a lack, there isn't a trust there. A lot of it also ties back to the relationship that you have. You being a procurement police, what do I mean by procurement police? You're just enforcing the policies and procedures, nothing else. You don't care about their business drivers, what value do their business bring, how could you add things to them. And this is not typecasting all procurement folks, but this is what I'm talking the industry looks at it as. A lot of the work that we're doing looks like this. And I just want to show you a mirror as to how what I've been hearing out there in the industry. Second one is the savings maniac, right? We just care about the savings. So one is the policy, another one is the savings. I'm sure these are the two important things, but there is a way to manage them. The fourth one is a clear-cut communication gap, where the requirement issues are majorly the case, right? Communication gap is you hardly talk to each other, then there is no communication as such. So there's definitely going to be a gap. Documented procedures and policy. This also is very, you might have, if you have a policy procedure, it's done in 1947 and we've never touched it after that, or we don't have one at all, or even if we have one, it's not as detailed as we'd like it. A lot of the things would get ironed out if you have the policy and procedure sitting with the end user and doing it together. It will definitely help the areas that they are coming into the picture, like when they're on the approval flow for a requisition, or when you're trying to evaluate a supplier before you bring them on, whether you want to take a decision between an incumbent supplier versus a new supplier, or the RFQ itself, where they're evaluating the responses of the supplier. So all these variations, so you could bring those elements into the policy and procedure and ensure that there is governance or some kind of a control out there. Oh, the most important thing on the policy and procedure is, again, clearly ironing out what is a saving, what is a cost reduction, so that it's signed off with finance as well. And finance knows when we come to them with a particular detail that this is what a savings is. There shouldn't be any debate as to is this a savings or not, right? It should be as clear as possible for both the teams. And that's where the policy and procedure is there. Little to no governance. So again, we have a policy and procedure, but no one is following it. We don't have a track of it. And it's kind of left out in the dark. It only again comes back when the audit team comes and does an audit and they say these are all your audit issues, right? So that's when we go back and again look at it. It's like a post-mortem as opposed to a pre-mortem, not diagnosing the issue ahead of the time as the procurement doctor would do, right? Rather getting diseased and then going in and trying to understand as a post-mortem. Lack of leadership involvement, that's always I've seen the case. And I saw a lot of votes in the beginning in terms of the painful stakeholders that senior leadership is not involved. It's because they don't understand what procurement does, or they don't care about what procurement is doing. They don't see the value that procurement brings to the table. Manual process or no technology in place is again ties back to governance, ties back to your policy and procedure. Because if you have a manual process, you have a way around the process to do unethical things. You have a way around the process to make an exception or non-compliance. There's no way to track it. Technology does help you to bring a little bit of governance. If you have a audit gap from last year, which was clearly highlighted that you have an issue in releasing POs against contracts that are expired. So you should have a process of managing your contracts, and how do you tie that back to your POs? So that could be done through a system, and that's one such example. Also, if you're doing RFPs in email today, you can send the wrong pricing. You can share the wrong pricing to the wrong guy on the email, right? So there's a lot of manual intervention could make a big blunder, and technology does help to some extent. But if you have a good process, good procedure, and you're following it strictly, there is some kind of a governance around it, you may still survive without a technology, but minimal technology is still good. Okay? Little to no category of business knowledge. So this is why your business stakeholders think whatever you speak seems to be Greek and Latin, and whatever they speak to you seems like Greek and Latin. So it's the right hand doesn't know what the left hand is doing, right? So they're talking something else, and you don't understand what exactly that they're coming up with, right? And we definitely need to build in that knowledge or do some bit of research. I know a lot of our organizations have had specific category specific knowledge, right? But if you want to be a category expert, you have to hone those skills over a period of time. There are different ways of doing it. There are certifications. There is just you going and sitting. It's called a day in the life of. You just sit with your stakeholder for one full day and understand what they're doing. Just spare some time in the week. So that will also help you gain that knowledge, right? The last part, it's a key critical one, lack of motivation or initiative. And this goes for everyone. We just want to do what gets us to the next step. We're not looking at it as a long term, as a strategy. How do we get things, make our lives better, make our customer life better? So we're just trying to we're not looking far ahead, and we're not motivated enough to bring in the change. We talk a lot of this stuff. We all know all these problems, but we've never taken an action over it. So that's another key piece that I see that drives all these points. So let's get to the how, and I'll spend to a large part of the rest of the discussion on the how, right? And let me quickly check the chat window Okay, wonderful. Let's get to the how here, guys. So in the how, is this, what do you think would help? Let me know in the comments, guys, if you think you challenging your biggest stakeholder would help. In all probability, you'll be running like that, like you see on the screen, and the bear is your stakeholder. He'll come back to you. So there is a particular way approach that you need to go ahead and look at, right, to manage these issues. So I'll just give you some context as to this is not all just my experience. I've done some bit of I've read a few articles, and this is how it looks like as on date. I don't know if there's a way to clear this. Okay, it's fine. So how are we doing today, right? So as in the stakeholder management space, and this is a Deloitte report, and if you see on this, there are few major themes that we could see. One is the effectiveness of procurement, somewhat effective in delivering value for their stakeholders. We are close to 61%, right? And we can't boost ourselves or give ourselves a pat on the back for that kind of a score. Only 44% of us have a customer satisfaction program or a way to measure it, right? Right. Most of the organizations, even the biggest companies in the US, we consider US to be very mature, right? Even they don't have a lot of these things. Okay. And a few thoughts as to how we could help better this is working in cross-functional teams. I'll talk all you out on a few examples, right? There was this company that I got interviewed by in Denmark around a year ago, right? I was very impressed by the structure they have. They have a pure, I don't know, what do they call that? It's a hybrid or the organizational structure. It's a hybrid or something. Please put it in the comments if you know the right word to it. It's a dynamic organizational structure. So the guy who interviewed me, I was getting hired there, or I had interviewed for Ariba deployment. They were deploying Ariba, as well as they wanted me to help them with the technology side of things, as well as structure the business policy, business policies, bring it all together and ensure that it's a wholesome thing, not just the IT side, but the overall thing. And the guy who interviewed me was heading IT, right? And he had again the role of the procurement side of things for the Ariba delivery, as well as he was the guy who manages the IT procurement, so to say. So they had a nice mix. Similarly, they have everybody manages two roles, two sides of the same coin. So that gives you a nice cross-functional exposure. You can clarify a lot of the gaps in the process right then and there because you are on both sides of the coin. Now, 63% of the people procurement has joint targets with the internal stakeholders. It's only 63%, guys. That means they have a different objective. We have a different objective. Maybe our both objectives don't talk to each other at all, right? So that's another key piece. So we'll have to drill down the objectives or the metrics right from the organization level and then a level below, and then to the granular level to the end person. Okay. There is no balance of scorecards. You think something and you think you're doing a great job. They don't think of it in the same way. Okay. 45% is again talking about physically co-located with their stakeholders. So I've seen way back in 2011-12 when I was working in this organization, the buyer would sit on the site. So there is a site buyer, and he doesn't have an office, a corporate office from which he's working. And this works very well in certain categories or certain industries where the buyer is sitting right beside on the plant and is getting things done, right? But this doesn't work all the while. So we'll have to also look at that angle. Again, towards the bottom, if you see the key barriers to delivering value is again misaligned objectives, lack of resources, lack of internal engagement, lack of influence. Influence again is a key piece, theme out here, guys. Discover real Coco. Okay. I see comments from Krishna. Most of them procurement teams expects. Okay. Awesome. Yeah, I'll get back to the comments, guys. Thank you so much for the comments. And the overall theme of the slide is the overall theme of this slide is 44% of procurement organizations are measuring internal customer satisfaction, and 56% don't have that as a yardstick. So let me know, guys, in your comments whether it's the case with you as well. Krishna, would you mind going on mute? It looks like you're on. Yeah, thanks. And I'll come to this slide, which would kind of give us a how do we stop the fight, right? We've identified who it is. We've identified what are the problems and why does it happen, right? And let's see how do we stop the fight. And there are a lot of ways to do this, guys, but this is just a few thoughts that I put across. So I definitely want your involvement and let me know what else could be done to stop these fights. One I see is a clear one is build trust. And what I'll talk about here is for you to understand your stakeholders' business function is key for you to increase the collaboration, right? You need to know what they're doing. Each department in the organizations provide a specific function. And some of the things are like the core function of the department, their goals for that year, what are the challenges that they're facing, right? You need to at least understand these things. And how do you build trust out here? One is you should have a relationship in a manner that you don't necessarily need to go ahead and talk only when there's a requisition or when there's a contract that's getting expired or there's some issue, right? You could just casually go and sit and talk to them and ask them what is it that they do and you should look at and see how procurement can come into the picture to help them with certain things. Okay, so that's about building trust. The other piece that I have is business knowledge. So this is again a key area. I know a lot of us are engineers. There are a few people who have somewhat of medical background. If you're working in pharmacy or medical devices company, or you've learned it over the years by working in the same category, right? So if you have that business knowledge, there's no harm in coming up and speaking and giving recommendations to a particular, let's talk about something in the direct space. There is, you could suggest changes to recipes, and that also is savings, that also is calculated as a savings. Maybe the business team did not think of the recipe in a particular manner, maybe there's a substitute that you can give, and that substitute gave you savings for the overall organization. That is another savings that you could potentially deliver, right? So there is different variations out there, and on the business knowledge in particular, we need to constantly look at this and keep upskilling ourselves. I know a lot of the procurement professionals like jumping around different jobs, but if you want to be a pure commodity expert, I would recommend that you jump within the same domain or the same category. That way, you'll build expertise over the time period. But this is all again up to your career. How do you want to do it? Okay, so that's the business knowledge piece. The next one is procurement is not only about savings. We need to change this concept, guys. As on date, that's what everyone thinks of us as. They think of us like this guy who's going to ask about savings and nothing else. And it's perceived that way in the industry. And if you look at it, there are other things as well that you can contribute in terms of risk management and compliance. And then risk management is a big thing, right? Savings amounts is still somewhat affecting the financial value. But imagine if your company is sued by someone and it's costing you millions and millions of dollars, and you're potentially governing that piece as a part of procurement. And I see that there's a lot of areas that procurement can come in terms of the risk management piece. And you guys need to think in this way and also have metrics around this. Now, tying back to the relationship or the trust, responsiveness is again a very key thing, right? the stakeholder, imagine it's me. You call me 3 times and I did not pick up the phone. You wouldn't feel like calling me the next time, right? So, or you send me an email, I respond to it after 7 days or 10 days, not reading at it, or I haven't read the email properly, or whatever may be the case. So these small things do matter, and they go a long way in building the rapport with your stakeholders. So responsiveness is very key as individuals in any profile, but it's all the more important for procurement as well. The last piece on this slide in particular is defining clear-cut goals, right? So when I look at defining clear-cut goals here, you need to look at having, this again ties back to the metrics under what is a saving, what's not a saving, what is a compliant item, what is a non-compliant item, what is a satisfaction, you send a satisfaction survey to your stakeholder. I would also recommend have it with your supplier as well, even though supplier is an external stakeholder to you, right? The metrics for the RFP. See, the stakeholders always are behind your back to deliver something quick. So we need to also find ways of how you could be involved in the process ahead of time, as well as how you could reduce the time of the overall process. You need to find different variations. Like again, if you look at it, we're talking about RFP here, renegotiations with incumbent suppliers, also about the supplier development program. So I know not many of our organizations might have a supplier development program, but I would suggest to start off with something to begin, right? Even though you don't have a lot of spend, but still it makes sense to have some kind of a supplier development program or a supplier performance management program, where you at least have a process when a supplier is coming in, when he's registering, what are the questions you're going to ask after registration, in what list you're going to put it. He needs to be given a category, whether it's critical or a major supplier or a minor supplier. If it's a critical supplier, you're supposed to have a business stakeholder aligned to it. So there has to be a supplier manager there. Depending on the category, if the business stakeholder is very close to the supplier, he deals a lot with them, and procurement involvement is very less, give that responsibility to the business stakeholder. But you have to be the secondary supplier manager out there. So that control, you need to have that control from the business stakeholders. They cannot run the show for you. You're not supposed to be just the guy who clicks approve on the PO or raises an alarm if something's going over the limit, right? It should be a lot different on this piece. I'll just take the last 5 minutes on this slide. So the key theme out here, guys, for me is there needs to be a mindset change for the procurement teams. And I just put down something here which could get you thinking. One is procurement is no different than sales. It's just the opposite of sales, right? With the only difference is that our customers are internal stakeholders. Successful sales professionals know very well how to overcome the customer objections. Procurement also should have the same skill. And recently I had one of my people from the LinkedIn network where they posted what are the 2 trainings that procurement needs. And he gave an option for sales and marketing training. The other option was, I think it was finance training, right? And he put a survey out, and I see most of the people going in and asking for sales and marketing training is because it's more of managing the relationships, negotiation. We do have the skill inbuilt, right? The rest of the things we need to increase to help in the collaboration as well as influencing procurement. You have to have a procurement influence within the organization. And a few pointers on the quick wins. I've already spoken about establishing a supplier management program. The other 3 points I'll talk about, and then we can open it out for questions. The next quick win I see is having an interdepartmental contract. This might not necessarily be a legal contract. Procurement needs to be involved right at the budgeting phase where your stakeholders are sitting and allocating budget. You need to have a sidebar discussion with your stakeholders. Tell them that, come on, come on, Montu, I want this much of your spend to come through procurement, and I'll give you 4% saving over it, right? And you are kind of tracking that right then in that budget and telling that send this all these three things through me, that kind of a thing. And you could also establish other things. This may not be an SOW, it could just be a meeting or a presentation that you did, and you finalize something and you're agreeing to something out here. So that helps a lot. Recurring meetings with your business stakeholders is a given, right? Because we know that we don't get along well, so that would help. Adding a metric to stakeholder satisfaction is another key thing. And I know we've spoken about finance. So on the finance side, guys, it's always like the savings. And one other thing on the finance quick win is if you're seeing a lot of disruption between these two things, it's not heavily used in India, so to say, but a lot of the European and the US countries do this. You must have heard this thing called a rotation program, wherein your role has been rotated to another role for a certain time period, and then you're coming back to your role. And I definitely think it makes sense, procurement and finance, to switch their roles for 3 months, 6 months period, and then they come back and work on a project and try to kill all the pain areas and plug the process in such a way that you work like twin brothers and sisters, right? So that's my thought process. And Montu, I think that's about it from my side. I'll move on to questions if anyone have. So please go ahead with the questions, guys. And thank you so much for letting me speak, blabber all this while.
Thank you so much, Karthik, for sharing your experience over this challenging topic.
The fights between these two things, right? It's always it's a very controversial topic. People don't like talking about it, right? Even it's shunned upon. So it's good that we brought up this topic and people are at least able to speak. I'm seeing a lot of good comments in the chat window as well. So Montu, you can take it from here. Thank you.
Sure. So Krishna is asking, procurement needs product training and components training in terms of understanding more than the business sales and marketing team know of the product output. Absolutely, Krishna, you are saying right.
I agree with that. Absolutely. You need to know the product. Else, how do you know? So a lot of the things, like this is a product that we are selling, right? If we don't know what the product is, we don't know why we're procuring the ink or the lid or the cap or whatever may be the case. So if you don't have background to that, you don't know what you're buying, how is the impact. If you don't know whether the ink is required first or the cap is required later, so you don't have priority as well. So very good point, Krishna.
Krishna, from where you are joining us, and please let us also know you are joining us first time or you are a recurring participant in Procurement Wale community. Thank you, Krishna, once again for joining us. And Karthik, Praveen Verma is asking, after COVID, most small-scale organizations face liquidity issue and facing cash flow fluctuation due to supplier payment affecting continuously. Okay. Mm-hmm. In this situation, how to manage supplier management without affecting supply of material?
Okay, if I answer that question right, there's no one-stop answer to that, Praveen. Honestly, it's like if I had the answer to that question, I would have been able to make millions. Maybe I would be Jeff Bezos or whatever may be the case. But I'll just talk about certain few things that come to my mind out here, right? How do you manage? The main thing is, if you did not manage your in-house day-to-day operations before COVID, right? Then you messed up during COVID as well. If you don't have your house clean before COVID, like having your contracts in place, have everything tied in the right way, right? Then you are definitely going to face problems. If not now, it's better to start getting your house clean in terms of managing your contracts, your supplier relationships, the supplier database, ahead of time. One thing that I've seen in terms of the payment effectiveness and the cash flow. So what all organizations have done as soon as COVID hit, they've increased their payment terms from 30 to 90 or 90 to 120 to better the cash flow, right? And suppliers are catching their head and they don't know how do they deliver to this because they don't have the money either. So I've seen few innovative ways how people manage this is they paid immediately because suppliers are prioritizing you over the other guys in terms of delivering the services. And you could, so that was another angle to this. And definitely you're getting a better service because it's between COVID, it's a risky situation. You want all the products and goods to come back to you on time. So you could think the other way as well. Cash flow is king, I know, but not always the case. You can't make sales if you don't have cash flow, don't have products or deliveries that are happening.
Thanks, Karthik. And Praveen Verma, can you please let me know from where you are joining? And this is your first time or you are a recurring participant in Procurement Wale? Okay. So next question is Sivakran is asking, I would want to know how procurer has to keep a good relationship and the quality a stakeholder needs to have.
Wonderful. So I think certain elements of this we've covered in the slide, right? I'll just reiterate those things. One is building the trust, right? Come across as a person who knows his stuff. Right? You should know what you're talking about. You should know your category. You should know your product, right? And the main thing is you need to be a very good listener, right? You need to sit and listen to them and understand what is it their challenges are. Maybe those challenges, you might not make an impact to all their challenges, but there are a lot of areas that procurement does come overall. So these are the 3-4 things that come to my mind. Shiva, thank you so much for that question.
Karthik, I have a question for you.
Any other questions? Yeah, sure, please.
Yes.
You're not supposed to ask questions, Montu. I don't allow you.
Okay, I will ask before the end of the session. Let me give.
No, go ahead. Do you have any other questions? I was just joking. Okay, don't take it first.
Okay, so Abhijit is asking, procurement peoples are not being involved in strategic business discussion. What to do? Oh, what a great question.
Oh, absolutely. So, one couple of things out here. Okay. The procurement influence needs to increase for sure, right? How does the influence increase? Is you need to have a chair at the table of the executive team. Right? It's not the finance. If you're reporting into CFO, he's the guy talking on behalf of procurement. So there's no impact because he's just talking about budgets, the balance sheet, and all that stuff. One thing that I've tried implemented in 2 organizations, Abhijit, out here is for people to understand, we need to stop talking let's go ahead and go to another department in your company and talk about non-IT consulting category or print and media and advertising category. They will say, what the heck is that? I don't understand. It doesn't matter to me, right? It's a very internal to procurement. So we need to change our reporting or the way we speak as well. And one thing that might be of impact is you need to show the value of procurement on a balance sheet. How do you do that? Right now, what happens is if the CFO and the CEO is sitting and the CPO is sitting, they look at the balance sheet and they say the spend has increased, everything has increased. How is procurement making an impact? Right? They're just looking at last year and this year. But there's a lot that's happening in the background. So we should show the difference that procurement would make on a balance sheet, how that numbers would change if we did not bring a saving to the recipe. We did not bring a saving to the cost reduction. If we did not bring a saving on a contract negotiation on a big project. right? So that if you should show that in there and minus that and then show the balance sheet to them. So then they would clearly understand that yes, procurement is doing something and they'll involve you more in the discussions. Thank you for that question. It's a very nice one. Good, Martin.
Absolutely, Karthik. And next question from Vinod Kumar Jha, who is asking, we have many supplier base in China, but all of them not ready at all for LC terms. And here we have fund issue, not group level, but for the entity, since it is green field project.
Okay. So I might have I understood the question to some extent, but what does LC payment mean? Maybe I didn't understand that piece.
So it is some kind of,
what is LC?
Yes, it is payment term, letter of credit.
Okay, letter of credit, got that. Okay, yeah, this is like a particular issue in your project at your office right now, and I won't be able to give a detailed answer out here because I need to analyze it further, right? What exactly the situation is. We can connect on this later, Vinod, maybe through an email or whatever in particular.
Sure. And the next question from Vaibhav. Before we move the next question, Vinod, can you please let us know from where you exactly joining, and it is your first time or you are a recurring joiner in Procurement Valley?
And I think we have Rohit who answered Vinod's question. Thank you, Rohit.
No, hello. This is not first time. I have joined many times.
That's great. So how's your experience with Procurement Valley, dear? Vinod, thanks for joining us. No problem. And the next question is from Krishna. Yes, Vinod, you are audible. Please.
Okay. Monty, this is not first time. I joined many times. I think because right now I am associated with Wellesman Group, and this was a greenfield project Balkrishna Goenka has initiated in 2018. They don't having a payment issue in their plant located at Vapi, Anjar in Gujarat. Since it was a greenfield project, initially we had a funds issue. And now the thing is that our key raw materials we are procuring from China. That is basically a print film. We don't have supplier based at India who can supply us a print film. And all Chinese supplier wants 100% payment. Once we are giving 100% payment, then only they are considering for production of materials. So that kind of issue we are facing over here.
Got it. Got it.
So Vinod, I think we need to connect over phone call after this session, and we will
absolutely
definitely will answer your query.
Yeah, I think even Rohit had responded something to you, Vinod. Maybe that could be of help in the chat if you could look at it. So you could potentially.
Karthik, if you allow me, I would like to answer this.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Sure, why not?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, we know most of Chinese suppliers, they don't accept credit terms. We have to give 100% advance. We are working with 10-15 Chinese supplier. Out of them, only 2-3 they have given us a credit terms. There is one organization, Sinosure. You can contact them. So Chinese supplier trust this company because this is in China. So they can offer credit terms. And other ways, you just have to negotiate and sign an agreement with them so that it's just about trust, because they don't trust us. If they get they ship the material and if you don't pay, then that is the problem they have. So if you can just talk with them or find any agreement where you can sign and give them confidence, that will work.
Yeah, that we are trying. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, welcome.
Fantastic, Rohit, for your answer. And
thank you.
Rohit, from where you are exactly joining us?
I'm from Mumbai.
Yeah. Thank you for your time and thanks for joining us. And the next question from Vaibhav again. In organizing, management want to handle procurement by business team and lay off the procurement. What's your opinion on this?
there is a. So this is a very nice question, right? So I'll give a little bit of history to this fight. A little bit of history. Over the years, what's been the case? Somebody who didn't perform well, right, in a particular department, they reroute them to procurement. That's how it. Back in the day, the procurement hiring was happening like that, interdepartmentally, because there's nothing to do. It's just a PO, invoice, or whatever stuff, right? And even that has changed to a large extent from then to now. But still, if you see, the remnants of that thought process is still existing in today's organizations as well, right? And unfortunately, the only way to change this is to do whatever has been told on the how. Build that trust, show that value, bring that influence to the organization, have a chair at the table at the executive level as well. Only that will allow you to bring this change. And see, but in an organization, who brings the money, they look at it as sales. And they're the cream of the crowd, and they think anyone can buy. So that mindset which should change for an organization to be able to be in a position where we're not laid off very easily.
Thank you, Karthik, for your answer. And let me read next question from Krishna S. So Krishna, before I read your question, can you please let us know from where you are exactly joining us? So the question is, would operation synergies with right term buying and managing the entire procurement cycle be more agile if its procurement essential comes under the front-end business stream like operation, sales, and analytics strategic team rather than the present treatment as an arm-length cost-benefit entity and equivalent from finance and business operation streams?
Yeah, this is a very nice question and a lengthy and very nice detailed question. So to answer this question, a subset of this question has been answered in that Deloitte survey, if you look at it. It's talking about co-location, right? You're not being able to sit, or you're not sitting in the plant or the office where the business stakeholders are sitting. To synergize that activity, there has to be a lot more activities in terms of right from the budgeting aspect, like we spoke in the beginning, right? Procurement needs to be managed to be right at the beginning, where the budgets are getting allocated. Now, there is a funny bit out here as well. So when the budget allocation is done, it's finance, right? And when the expenditure allocations are done, who does it? Today, it's still finance. We don't do it, right? Whereas we are the guys who are contributing to the expenditure, or we buying for the company, right? So procurement is to come right then there to sit and be the key value driver for an organization, because you're looking at it holistically, not just money wise. And it definitely should not be at an arm's length for any department within an organization for it to run well.
Fantastic. So Abhijit Michel, so I would like to invite all participants. You can unmute your mic and directly ask question from.
Yeah, please. I'm glad to hear you guys. Nikhil, go ahead. I see you raised.
Yes, go ahead, hand. Please.
Yeah, first of all, very good afternoon to you guys. Actually, I was going to this. Yeah, I started just late with the seminar, and the topic is very, I would say sensational as well as very much relevant to current scenario. I'm basically working in the automotive sector, and this tug of war just goes on. And major aspect that I feel out is that the purchasing department guys, basically, even as a purchaser person, I feel that many times companies are hiring non-technical side background guys in the purchasing department, and they don't have that inclination towards learning the things. And disadvantages is taken by the production guys. Even if that production guy is basically, I refer to person who, even though he might not be a technical, but with the passage of time, he has learned the skills, skill sets or all, and he has realized the things. So this is the big, and I'm basically facing the same problem with my team also. many some of the guys who are basically since I am associated with the company for just 3-4 months, I'm seeing the guys are basically they don't have that inclination. So how can we just overcome this thing, that inclination towards learning the technical aspects, so that then they can contribute the production department majorly, and even they should have an inclination to finance, because ultimately finance is also as much very important to a purchasing guy.
Yeah, whether you like them or not, you have to work with them.
Yes.
Really, we should respect the decision of, HR.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Nikhil, just a couple of things that come to my mind immediately, right? What comes to my mind is the Middle East. The Middle East, if you guys have applied for a job, if you have to have experience in oil and gas for you to apply even in procurement. So we should. There are few in the European market as well. You need to have direct material exposure if it's FMCG or whatever. So definitely you have to go to your HR, change the job description, and ensure that you're hiring the right guys. If you want to make an impact to the team, that has to happen. So maybe that's a good observation of yours, and you could cut it at the grassroots level right there.
But what I'm actually is telling that basically there needs to be hunger. And how can HR basically find the guys who have that hunger within them? It's not necessary that he should be 100% technical guy. Yeah. He can learn with the test, but if he has that hunger within him, definitely he can
from the manufacturing background. Try something good.
I am from the manufacturing background. Suppose tomorrow I get an opportunity with Samsung. It's not that I won't be learn. Maybe it might take 10 days, 15 days, 20 days. Within 20 days, I will be able to, because the basic of manufacturing is same. So procurement, if one has that hunger, one can definitely get to that thing. That's what I'm saying, basically.
Absolutely. Makes sense. The motivation and the initiative should be there.
Yeah.
So, without that, it won't work.
Yes. Got it, yes. Anyway, thanks for your reply.
That is why we are here. So I would say we need to build our connections with all procurement wale professional in procurement wale community. So in case I can have also a doubt or a query. I need to learn from you guys, and I can also ask some kind of question if I have a doubt. So this is not only about to deliver or to learn the people. So we are here to learn from you guys also. So thank you for asking the questions. And should we
One thing I learned is from Rohit answering Vinod's question about China, because I had no idea about that. I've hardly worked with China in my lifetime. So yes. Thank you so much. So I learned something new today as well.
Hi sir, this is Shiv Kiran.
Shiva Kiran, yep.
From Bangalore. In my job, and there is one vendor, and he is providing AMC for a CCTV system past 8 to 9 years, but he is providing best service and in best competitive prices. Compared to him, no one is providing in this best price and best service. But management is telling why you are doing renewal every year to this vendor only. But we have looked for so many vendors, but no one vendor is ready to compete with his price and service. And but we are also not finding vendors. Then how to convince to the head of the department and management in this situation?
So you said the price also is good, service also is good.
Service also is good, but how much we ask that is price, he is ready to provide that AMC service. But other vendors are not ready. But management is putting a question on this, and why you are repeating that AMC to this vendor only.
So how do you finalize? So how are you doing it? Are you doing a manual negotiation or an RFP or something with these vendors?
Sorry, sir?
Are you doing an RFP or an RFQ or a tender with all the vendors?
Yeah, request for quotation. We will request for minimum 3 quotations. Out of 3 quotations, his quotation is very competitive every year.
Yeah, so there is the answer, right? So you can run as many as RFQs. If he's winning, he needs to be given the award. How can you still give it to someone else when he's doing all the right things?
With his price only, you find other vendors. in future how we can rely on only one vendor that management and head of the department are asking, but no one vendor is ready. But we are stuck in this situation.
Got it. So you're looking at what if this guy goes away or he doesn't do a good job? How do we have a backup? That's what I understand. That's what the management is saying.
They are thinking in that way.
You should take the second best guy then, whoever is getting a higher price. If he looks at maybe his price is more than this guy, but at least have someone on the back end. Maybe give him 25% of the work. That's it. And then have them both on board. Or you could just have them on your preferred vendor list as two guys instead of one, but one guy is getting the contract.
Like L1 and L2.
Yeah, that's it. He's a critical guy, this guy's the preferred supplier or a major supplier. That's it. Whenever that guy doesn't perform, you could tell him that I have another guy who can help me do your job. I have it ready. So please be
politely how we should convince to the head. I asked.
So politely, you have to just put the numbers on the table, Shiva. Right?
Just
the numbers speak. The numbers should be clearly giving out a story. And then put the question to him. If he's a logical leader, he would give the right answer, right? Let him take the decision, but you need to keep everything clear, spick and span. There's no reason for you to change the supplier in the first place, according to me. This is the scenario.
Okay, thank you, sir, for
information.
Thank you, Shivakaran, for asking the question. And Karthik, time really flies, and we should really
I gave 15 minutes for questions. I ate up 5 more minutes as a fact, and this is very interactive, and I really enjoyed this session.
We should really move towards to end of this session, and I must tell, I will share the recording of this session on our social media handles like YouTube and LinkedIn. So Karthik, can you please share your contact details with our audience so that they have any kind of question can directly reach to you?
I forgot to put that here. Okay, I'll add it to the slide. You can share the slides to them as well, right? Montu, do you plan to do that? Or I'll send you an email with all my contacts.
Can you please put into chat box your email ID and your contact number?
Sure, I'll do that.
If you don't mind.
Yeah.
And I will also provoke you to have a second session on how to write a good resume for procurement professional.
Sure, man. I'll say what worked for me, okay? I'll just let you know what worked for me and hope that it works for you. It's helped a lot of guys.
Yes.
Right? And,
it is the biggest challenge. Yes, it is the biggest challenge in current pandemic situation. And I really enjoyed today's session, Karthik, and I will be thankful to all of our participants who is investing time and enjoying with us also. So see you soon, and we will catch up again.
Guys, I put in the LinkedIn and my email. Do connect with me, and I'll be glad to help with questions. You can call me anytime or Slack me, send me a message on LinkedIn. I'll be glad to answer your questions as much as I can.
Sure, Karthik. What a wonderful session.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you.